What do farmers need to do to sign up?
There's a link on the webpage, and that link will lead farmers to the expression of interest form, which is an online form. I will step people through the form now so that it gives some insight into the type of questions that are going to be asked so that farmers understand the kind of information that we're after. And really it's information. A lot of the information is information that farmers will know. There will be some specific information that farmers will need to make some phone calls kind of thing, depending on what strategies they want to demonstrate. So when you click on the link, you'll land on the screen that we're looking at now. If you click on the Start Now button, it actually takes you through to the questions. And the questions, when you first look at it, there's quite a few questions, I think 19 questions there. But what happens is that as you click on certain questions, if you click yes, it might open up some additional information that we're after. If you click on no, then it'll flick you through to the next question. So this will open up. So it's not just what you see when you actually look at the page in the first instance. So the first question, or the first sets of questions, is about the applicant. And the applicant can be a business, the applicant can be an individual. The criteria that we've got here is that the applicant must have an ABN, but the applicant also needs to have the capacity to contract. So what we're saying is that if somebody is working for a company, then they must have the authority to actually enter into a contract on behalf of that company. For a farmer that's a sole trader, then clearly he has the capacity to do that. So we ask for the people's name, given name, surname, phone number and email address. Here is probably one of the key ones where you have to confirm that you have read the expression of interest invitation. If you click on this link, it'll actually take you back to the web page, and there'll be a link on that web page to the expression of interest invitation. So we just need people to read that so that they're aware of the expectations that they can hold for DPIRD, but also what DPIRD wants from them. So it just makes it clear that they're aware of what's going on. The address of the property where the proposed demonstration will take place. There are some maps on the web page. So for these, because we're building hubs around the Wagga Wagga and the Narrabri research stations, we are limiting it to, in this first round, to a certain distance within those, around those research stations. So that's why we're getting the address. But what we do need is we need to actually get the GPS location of the demonstration area. The instructions on how to do that with Google Maps is there. And what we want to know is where precisely people are thinking of actually having a demonstration area, because clearly an address can be many thousands of hectares. So we just want to get an idea of where it actually sits. The demonstration area has to be just one area, but it doesn't have to be one paddock. If people want to do a demonstration across 3, 4, 5 paddocks, that's great. Because 3, 4, 5 paddocks are going to have different rotations. They're going to be up to different parts of the rotation, different crops in that rotation. So the main thing is that they need, if there's multiple paddocks, they need to be adjoining paddocks, so that it just simplifies things. So we're not driving around a farm trying to look at different things and trying to get data for different things. It just makes the process a lot simpler. We need people to confirm that they do intend to grow grain or cotton crops in the demonstration area between the years of 2026 and 2028. So depending on what's going on, somebody might have a long fallow, there might be a drought, but really we just need people to confirm that yes, they're going to grow grain or cotton. And this excludes rice. So grain are leviable grains from a GRDC perspective, basically, because that's where some of the funding is coming from for this. Now, because it's a GRDC, CRDC project, we don't actually want livestock included in the demonstration area. We not we acknowledge that dual purpose cereals and whatnot have a role in farming systems. But at this point in time, we really just need to focus on what's going on, particularly in the grain system, because you don't graze cotton, but in that grain system, we really need to focus on what's going on within those grain systems, and putting livestock onto that can make it more difficult to actually assess what the emissions reduction is. So we need people to be aware of what their minimum time period is for the different strategies, and that's all available in a table that's in the document. What we do need is people to tell us what their current rotations are, or their planned rotations are for the next 3 years in each of the paddocks that they're nominating. So clearly, depending on what's going on with markets and whatnot, people might change their mind. But if people can give an indicative rotation, that would be great. We need to know what the soil types are so we can actually make sure we're getting a different range of soil types. Understanding whether irrigation is available, if it's an irrigated paddock when water is available, is also important, because we want to get a mix of irrigated and dryland systems. And then once we get down to question 19 here, this is where we start looking for information about what people actually want to demonstrate. So the first one, and this is actually going to step us through what's available in the first round. I didn't think of that. So the first one is, if people want to demonstrate variable rate nitrogen applications, if they click on yes, then it opens up additional questions. So what we need to know is what rate of nitrogen people actually put on each of the crops that they've said is in the rotation in the previous response. This just allows us to get an idea of what we might expect by using variable rate nitrogen. We want to get an idea of how they're going to determine variable rate. So people might do an annual gridded soil test across the demonstration area. They might do that in the first year and then just use estimates of removals from a yield map, or they might go from a yield map. We also need to know how many soil tests people are going to take from across the area, and the years that people are interested in demonstrating it. So if you are interested in demonstrating end banking, when you click on that, that opens up very similar questions to what people need to answer for variable rates. So I won't go across that again. We don't need to go into that much detail. We've got an option for people to demonstrate in-crop monitoring to refine the yield potential and refine their in-crop nitrogen application rate. And essentially this is putting in a weather station and a soil moisture probe. So what that allows, like farmers may set a yield potential at the start of the season, but it allows them to go, well, I am going better than I am at a certain growth stage, so therefore I'm going to put on more nitrogen. But if the season's not shaping up how they thought, then they might want to hold back, because if they put on more nitrogen that isn't actually utilised by the crop because it's water limited, then the greenhouse gas emissions intensity is going to go up. So it's around making sure you're not over applying, which increases your emissions intensity, but you're not under applying, which means that you're cutting your yield, or you're dropping your protein and that kind of thing. So you're still meeting the qualities that you're chasing. So nitrification inhibitors are a product that slow the release of nitrogen to a crop from fertilizer. So people can apply to do that. I will note that nitrification inhibitors, if they do that, it's only the nitrogen that's at sowing, because spreading nitrification inhibitors doesn't have the same benefit of when it's put into the soil. And nitrification inhibitors can also be used with anhydrous. And another one is a urease inhibitor. And so urease inhibitors reduce the volatilization of urea. It's essentially a risk management mechanism where you can, if they're predicting 10 mils to come through and you go out and spread your urea and you miss that 10 mils, it gives you another 2 to 3 weeks to jag another rainfall event so that you get the nitrogen, so the urea gets washed into the soil. You don't see it disappearing on a daily basis into the atmosphere and you're losing that nitrogen. But in doing so, it also reduces your greenhouse gas emissions. I won't go through the specifics of either the nitrification inhibitor or the urease inhibitor, but what I will say, and I should have said earlier, is that the strategies that we're supporting or that we want demonstrated need to have a very strong evidence base that they reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so one of the reasons that here we have N-Power listed, and then as a nitrification inhibitor, but the urease inhibitor we have NBPT specifically, I won't try to pronounce the full name, listed, is because they are the two products that we have adequate evidence to support an emissions reduction. As more evidence becomes available, we can add other products on, but at this point in time, and if you go to the document, you'll see the reference where we're getting this information from. These are the two products that are supported by evidence. People can increase the frequency of legumes in a rotation, and that essentially that doesn't mean that if you've already got a good proportion of legumes in a rotation that you can't do it. If somebody's got no legumes in rotation and they want to put one in their rotation, great. But if they've already got, 25% legumes and they think that there's going to be value in putting an additional legume somewhere in their rotation and they're happy with the disease risk that comes along with that or any of the other risks, then they can choose to try and see what happens if they put, an additional legume into a rotation or a different legume into a rotation. Particularly interested in areas where legumes are seen as very risky. If this gives an opportunity for somebody to trial a legume where they just, don't see that it's going to work, then that would be great, because it's going to give us an opportunity to see why it doesn't work, particularly across different seasons. And then the final two are around renewable liquid fuels. And so that's either renewable diesel or biodiesel. These would take a little bit of thought and a little bit of background research to implement. They probably wouldn't work for Narrabri, I imagine. I'm going to say that they won't, only because of the freight costs. So, for somebody that wants to demonstrate these, needs to be a little bit closer to the distribution point or closer to port. But if somebody wants to have wants to try these and they are based at Narrabri, then by all means do it. I'm just aware, I don't want people to think that I'm not aware of things like transport costs and everything else, even though it is an available strategy. And the final one is the opportunity to replace a diesel pump with an electric pump. And essentially that's and that can be any size pump. Noting that, where a diesel pump may not mean that you can go to an electric pump, because you're going to have to run overheads for 1 kilometre from the nearest connection. But it's not just grid connected electric pumps, it's solar battery, battery grid connected. There's a whole range of opportunities. We know that this is a significant capital investment on the part of farmers, and they may look at the $3,000 per annum per year as inadequate for them to kind of go, well, that's enough for me to actually take this on and demonstrate it. And if that's the case, then that's the feedback that we're willing to get. I guess we're just trying to balance everything at the moment with the way that we're rolling this out. Finally, we need to know how many hectares the demonstration area is. We're really interested to know if people are using farm management software, because as part of this program, we want to work on the automation of the carbon footprinting process, which means that we would ask to go in to the back end and pick up farm management data from AgriWebb or AgWorld or whatever other program people are using. And then we need to know whether people are willing to host other ARN participants on their site, whether they're willing to have a public field day, because we do want to do extension to the public as part of the program. And we're also interested in finding out whether people have worked with GRDC, CRDC, or with New South Wales DPI, DPIRD before, and some information on what people are doing out there already around greenhouse gas emissions reduction strategies in their grains or cotton production systems. So that just gives us a handle, I guess, on not only what people are implementing, but what they perceive as being greenhouse gas emissions reduction strategies. So once you've filled all that out, you press the submit button, and that means that that sends the answers to New South Wales DPIRD. We've got a process that will happen after that, and around late January, we expect to notify successful applicants.